Röki is a story. It is an adventure. It takes you by your hand since the first second and pulls you into its wonderful world, thanks to its beautiful characters, charming music, and beautiful art. Every frame is a painting. The game tells us a story about a family. You play as Tove, a girl that lives with her father and her younger brother. And one day, a terrible thing happens. You're forced to leave your home and to the forest that is scarcely illuminated by the cold moonlight, and your brother disappears into a mysterious portal. You follow him into the portal, and down the rabbit hole we go. This game reminded me a lot of Alice in Wonderland, a lot about Undertale, and it is kind of like those games that you live in this normal world and then you step through a magical portal into a whole other world that is kind of like yours but is a lot different. The living beings are different. Trees are talking, trolls live under the bridges, and little home helpers that are named Tomte are helping you throughout the journey. I found it interesting that every single character that I met throughout this game, be it a troll or even a tree, was very interesting, had a lot of character, and was memorable. Of course, I don't remember every single character by name because there were a lot of characters in the game. I just remember that none of them were out of place. They served their purpose in the story. All the characters circled around Norse mythology, fairy tales, stories, legends, you name it. And I really welcomed them, and they welcomed me. And that's why I remember them. The controls and the UI in this game were very intuitive, and you only see what you really need to see in the UI. And probably the most important part of your UI is going to be your backpack, which has some magical powers because you can stack as many things into it as you want. And you can also put things into the backpack that just don't belong there at all. But you can put them there, and she even puts them there. Another very important part of Tove's inventory is her notebook. Tove's notebook really amplifies that sense of adventure that you're having throughout the game because she just documents everything she sees in there. She puts paragraphs of text, she puts drawings in there, she puts collectibles in her notebook. Doesn't matter how disgusting those collectibles are, she still puts them in there. And for one, that notebook carries a very immersive factor because once Tove writes something down in that notebook, right, it's so Tove. Like, it is such a Tove thing to say once you write something down in there because she has a fashion of writing things down. She has her own handwriting, she has her own way of thinking, and you see that on those pages. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's informative, sometimes she's scared and just puts her emotions on paper, and you can read all of that in there and get to know her through that notebook. And I like that game design because it's not just a notebook to inform the player of what is happening around the world and where you need to go. No, it's also a means of you getting to know the character you're playing as. That is wonderful. And the other reason why it's so cool is because if you stop playing the game and you return it after 3 days and you want to remember what happened in the story, you can check there. You can check it there. If you forgot what you need for a puzzle and you need some information about a puzzle, Tove gives you a hint in her notebook. What I also liked about the game is the way the developers treated the camera, because the villain of the game is the Guardian of Winter, and that Guardian of Winter commands ravens, crows, whatnot, and they are spread out through the forest that you're walking through, or through the world in general, and they spy on you and tell everything back to the villain. And the camera in this game is placed in such a way that it is always like behind a bush, behind a tree, behind a branch, and you're always being followed, you're always being observed, stalked, whatever, and that is very well done. Not only is the camera placement simply beautiful and the composition of the picture is nice, it is also telling us about the story a little bit, how the villain behaves, and you kind of see yourself through the eyes of the villain a little bit, and it is very well done. And there aren't that many games that actually do this. The ones that I can name off the top of my head are Undertale, where Flowey kind of observes you throughout the world, but it's not specifically articulated that he does. Another game that does this is... I don't want to spoil it. Just play Doki Doki Literature Club, okay? Just do it. Do yourself a favor, it's free, do it. On your journey, you will have to do lots and lots of things. And by things, I mean puzzles. Puzzles are something that you will be doing throughout the game, always and always. Everywhere you go, everything will be a puzzle of sorts. Are those puzzles boring? No, they're not. There weren't any puzzles that I really got bored by. In fact, those puzzles are packed and presented in the best of ways. When you get to a point in the story, you meet a character. You talk to that character, and you get to know that character. Maybe that character needs help, maybe you need help from that character. And then you go on your quest to help that character. And this is where it gets interesting, because it is not just a matter of, hey, move this block over here, and then the puzzle is solved. No, your quest is actually to help the character, or get the help from the character. And the way it is done is in the most logical of ways. The puzzles organically fit into the world, and the way you do them in this world makes sense. Now, most things in this world aren't that hard to find, and most things in this world in terms of puzzles are very logical. And you might be a little bit cautious of the word most. That is true, because in this game I counted exactly 3 puzzles that just grinded my gears, and that's why Game received some of the bad reviews. For some of these puzzles that were just illogical. Those are in the game, that you can find them at the very end of the game. It's like in the last 2 hours. There are 3 puzzles that just make no sense at all, but you get through them. I got through them, and honest to God, I didn't really remember them when I finished the game, because the finale was worth it. However, it was still a very unpleasant experience, which was overshadowed by the great experiences that followed, and that needs to be kept in mind as well. Now, why do I mention the negatives about the gameplay so quickly? Because those negatives were also overshadowed by everything that was prior to that negative experience. That is the only negative thing that I can tell you about the game. Those 3 puzzles. Everything else is a joy to play and a joy to experience. Like I said, one of the biggest joys in the game are the characters. And the characters are very well written, however, they are written. None of the characters in the game are voiced. And some people might say, well, this is actually a negative, I don't want to read anything. Yeah, you don't have to. Maybe that game is not for you then. But there are lots of people who like to read, and this game might be for them. Doing voices is fun. If you're not a reader and you still want to experience the game with the fully voiced over characters, I invite you to my Let's Play of the game, where I voice every single character that is in the game, and you are most welcome to join me on that journey. I also want to commend the music in this game, because it is well written, it always fits the frame, and I also found myself humming the music sometimes while playing the game. I just enjoyed being in this world, and one of the reasons was the music. Overall, I can say that this is definitely a journey that is worth it. It is not a story that is unpredictable, it is not a story that is going to have a twist and a change on your life. It is just a pleasant story. It is a good adventure that is very pleasant to experience, and you like to hop onto it and see to the end. And you always have this urge to come back home after work and continue playing it. And you know how it will end. You know it. It is not that unpredictable. It's just nice. It is pleasant. It is something you want to return to. It is just like, I just really want to compare it to Undertale again, because it is kind of like that game. Undertale, you get into that dungeon and, well, at the end, shocker, you get out of the dungeon. You probably have to. But those characters, but that world, that music, that art, that everything that the game is, makes you want to play it again and again, and makes you want to return to it. This game is like that. It makes you fall in love with it and impacts you in a very positive way. However, this is not a game I would suggest you to play through in like 1 or 2 sittings. No, this is a game that you have to kind of doze for yourself. An hour an evening or so is good, but playing like for 3 hours an evening might be too much and you might get oversaturated and you might even probably get bored with it. Because there is a lot to read, there is a lot to process, and there is a lot of things happening in the game within those 3 hours. It is not little story here and there, it is a continuous telling of a story. By the way, not to take away credit from the story just because you know how it will probably end, you can guess it, there's no 100% way to know. It doesn't take away from the fact that there are twists in the game that are very unpredictable. That caught me off guard. That's in the game as well. So yeah, the game is officially a Myriad of Adventures approved. I fully recommend this game if you enjoyed the game Undertale, if you enjoy Alice in Wonderland type of stories, if you enjoy good writing, good scenery, good music, then this game is probably for you. If you're a person who doesn't like to read a lot and doesn't like questing games, it's probably not for you. What can I say? But that being said, I hope this was informative enough for you to make a decision whether you should get the game or not. And if you enjoyed this review, leave me a like down below. And if you didn't, leave me a dislike down below. And if you want more videos like this, subscribe and we will see each other in the future videos. Or at least hear each other, communicate, coexist as matter particles of the universe that meet through the power of the internet. Anyway, you get it. And it's just going to be as epic. So subscribe. I'll see you then. I wish you a nice rest of your day and fortunes happening throughout your journey until we see each other next time. Goodbye.